Of course, we're talking about Sam Bankman-Fried, former FTX CEO, in conversation with Andrew Ross Sorkin at the New York Times DealBook Conference. Truly a crazy interview, an hour and 12 minutes long, of lots of strange moments, including this one. We'll see this clip now.
Right now, I mean, look, I've had a bad month. This has not been a fun month for me, but that's not what matters here. Like, what matters here is the millions of customers. What matters here is all the stakeholders in FTX who got hurt, and trying to do everything I can to help them out. And you know, as long as that's the case, like, I don't think that you know, what happens with me is the important part of that, and I don't think that's what it makes sense for me to be focusing on.
Very bizarre laugh track thing aside, lots was shared in this conversation. Maybe not necessarily what's at the heart of the matter, but certainly a lot of hemming, hawing, and potential spin as to how Sam Bankman-Fried is trying to position himself in the wake of FTX's catastrophic collapse. I'm going to toss this straight to David. I know you were watching this as well, David. What are your thoughts about the SBF interview? There's many things to discuss this morning.
Yeah, it's very strange what he might be thinking. I think that there is this broader trend of these crypto guys who can't seem to shut their mouths after they commit large frauds and crimes. So I think the question right now is Sam Bankman-Fried being very smart or very stupid or both? If you're a lawyer, and he said his lawyers have asked him not to say anything. At the same time, while he is apologizing in sort of vague terms, he is not really getting to the heart of the matter, which is he seems to genuinely believe that it's not a big deal that there was no separation between Alameda and FTX and their operations and the flows of funds. He really doesn't seem to get it. I think I might be jumping the gun a little. Well, let's go to Jen, and then I have a tweet about it that we can share in a bit.
Yeah, David, you know, I think that Sam is so used to being the media darling, right? Having everyone love him. And I wonder if that like learned energy and what he got out of being this savior, like everyone was calling him in the media just months ago, has gotten to his head, and he is really trying to grasp at straws to just regain any kind of the reputation that he had back. Unfortunately, the facts are against him. And last night when I was watching this interview, every single time he said, you know, what's important here is the customers. I want to do my best to ensure that customers can be made whole, or can be made some semblance of whole. It just felt like a lie, because if what he really cared about was the customers, I don't think we would have been in this situation. And I know there are a lot of opinions on how the interview went. I think Andrew Sorkin did a good job. I think he asked all of the questions that, you know, I had at the top of my head. I think he did a good job at pressing Sam in the time that he had, but Sam just really kind of gave us the runaround. I don't feel like we got any more information. I don't feel like I believe him that what's important for him at the end of the days is the customer, because when Sorkin read that email from the customer who wrote to the New York Times and said, you know, I lost my life savings, he pointed to the terms and conditions of FTX saying that customer funds will not be used in the way that they were used. I didn't feel a lot of empathy from Sam, and I ended up going to bed just feeling like, ugh, what just happened? I wish I didn't watch this before I went to bed, because I'm not going to sleep well. But David, I'll kick it back up to you for that tweet.
Yeah, I not only did I not feel any empathy, I didn't even feel any comprehension from Sam. Like, he genuinely does not seem to like understand what he did wrong. And I think, you know, this resonates with another crypto scam that we've dealt with fairly recently, which was the UST and Terra scam, where Do Kwon is at least doing a really good job, and continues to, of acting like a guy who's just dumb. And that seems to be what is being revealed about Sam Bankman-Fried here to some extent. He's just not as smart as everybody seemed to think he was. And so he just waves his hands, and that's as good as he can do on some level. Of course, at the same time, and this is the question, maybe that's a pose, or maybe, there's part of his brain that really believes that, and the other part is saying, okay, act like this now. That'll do a good job of convincing people. Zach.
I mean, I'm in the camp that this is definitely not 4D chess, right? I think this is just some sort of weird personal truth that is manifesting itself in this weird, jittery way that Sam Bankman-Fried has had for a long time. I think Andrew Ross Sorkin deserves a lot of credit here. There's a lot of sort of cheap conspiracy theorizing out there that the New York Times is sort of putting SBF on some pedestal for hero worship, when indeed what we saw was a cross-examination, right? There was a lot of room for Sam Bankman-Fried to say things that will potentially be incriminating further down the line, including some key dates in terms of when he knew what was going on. Those are probably going to be counterposed to some public statements that were made after those dates, in which in the interview he said, okay, that's when I knew that things were going bad. So, I think sort of like the NYT boogeyman in the crypto community here is really misplaced. And this ended up being just a really fascinating conversation that I thought was pretty capably handled by Andrew Ross Sorkin in this instance. We should also mention that, this is a media tour at this point. SBF is on a media tour with Good Morning America. He taped an interview prior to the DealBook appearance with George Stephanopoulos that aired this morning, in which many of the same sentiments were expressed, including sort of this very pregnant pause when asked repeatedly about the question, did you know that there was the commingling of customer assets over on the Alameda trading side of the house? So it is strange to see this sort of publicity campaign in which SBF is trying to reframe things in a way that he thinks is favorable to him, while also I think the lawyers in the room are saying, wow, there's a lot of damning information that's coming out in a public setting that may not be good down the line. But Will, got to get your thoughts on this one. Just a crazy moment all around.
Yeah, 30 seconds before we go to the next story, which might be similar. Talking about Mike Novogratz's appearance this morning on TV, and I think he characterized this whole thing very well when he just called Sam delusional. Like, that whole interview with the New York Times yesterday was bizarre. The Good Morning America appearance this morning was also pretty bizarre. If you watch that, like you said, Zach, he was asked point blank if he knew about commingled funds, and he paused for like 30 seconds and then gave an answer, and then even tried to contextualize it. So it's a pretty obvious gambit that he's lying or trying to be deceitful in some way. And I think just Mike Novogratz's point really is important here. He's delusional at this point. I think what we're seeing is someone's life completely implode in front of him. Maybe he didn't think this was going to happen, but certainly has, and it's been a spectacle. And now he's going on a media tour, saying yes to everything, tweeting odd stuff, talking to YouTubers at odd hours of the nights. It's a really bizarre situation. Zach, back up to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's also just like some bizarro world scenario where this PR coup actually works. I'm not necessarily in that camp just yet. And I think maybe that what's being sought for here is a win in the court of public opinion, if maybe down the line the legal system won't be so kind. But SBF is trying his damnedest to gin up some goodwill here in the rubble.